All right, guys, so I've got the 6 Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchanges that we're going to be taking a look at today. If you are looking at this spreadsheet, it's going to look something like this. It's going to say view only right here. Do not click request edit access. I'm not going to be granting you edit access for this base spreadsheet. Instead, what you're going to do is click on file and make a copy. And then you'll be able to see this spreadsheet for yourself and input the values that are relevant to your unique situation. And that's going to help you make a better decision which of these 6 exchanges is going to be right for you. Because spoiler alert, there is no one answer of which one of these exchanges is the best. It really depends on what your use case for these exchanges is. So the way that I've tried to quantify sort of total cost of fees for all of these exchanges is by adding up the deposit fee, which would be the fee that you pay when you deposit money into the platform, the trading fee or the price spread. And this is going to be the fee that is incurred when you buy or sell cryptocurrency on one of these platforms. Some of these platforms like Strike have a $0 fee, but in reality, it's not actually $0. There is a market spread built into the price that Strike is showing you. And so in the case of Strike, that's what this number is. It's not a trading fee per se, but it does affect the amount of Bitcoin that you're going to be getting for your US dollars. The last fee here is the withdrawal fee. And the withdrawal fee, obviously the fee that you're paying to withdraw your cryptocurrency from these different platforms. And then finally, I have a little notes section here. This was just for myself, so feel free to edit this to whatever the notes are that you want to take on any of these different platforms. For example, for Strike, if you were in New York, you might write here, not yet available in New York, need to call my state representative. Or maybe for Swan and Strike, you would write something like Bitcoin only. That could be another relevant piece of information that maybe you would care about. So feel free to use this notes tab however you want. Next, let's go ahead and just take a look at the charts. And this is really the area of the spreadsheet that I think most people are going to care about. And this is basically just a table of your yearly spend and then how much you would be paying in fees on each of these different platforms based on how much money you spent on cryptocurrency in the whole calendar year. And so if you spent $1,000, you can see that at the high end, you might be paying $260 over on Binance, whereas on Strike, you would only be spending $2 in fees to purchase your $1,000 of Bitcoin. But you can see that as you start to spend more and more money over the year, the best exchange from a fee perspective starts to change. And I've done some conditional formatting here so you can see the lowest exchange for each amount of yearly spend. So if you're spending $1,000 a year, Strike is the cheapest platform to be accumulating Bitcoin on, all the way up until about $40,000 a year, where Kraken starts to become cheaper. And then if you hit over $125,000 a year, you can see that Binance becomes the cheapest option at those very, very large amounts of yearly spend. And so then if you scroll down here, you can see a chart and sort of a visualization of how the different fee structures for these different exchanges are working. For example, you can see that Strike's yearly fees are really just straight up and to the right. And that's because if you come back to the exchange fee data, you can see that Strike doesn't have a deposit fee and it doesn't have a withdrawal fee. It only has a trading fee. And so Strike's fees are really purely an input of how much money you're spending on the platform. And so while Strike's numbers for its trading fee are actually higher than something like Kraken, because Kraken has a withdrawal fee, Strike is actually cheaper up until a certain amount of spend per year, where Kraken actually finally takes over as being the cheaper option, but you have to spend quite a bit of money for Kraken to become economical versus Strike. So this gives you very clear-cut data on this page of which exchange is more economical per amount of spend. But what you're not seeing on this page are some of the assumptions that have been baked into this data. And so if you want to see those assumptions, we can come back over here to the assumptions tab. And we can see that there are 4 big assumptions that are baked into that data that we're seeing over on the charts page. The first one is the average yearly Bitcoin price. This matters because if we go back to the exchange fee data, we can see that the withdrawal fee is actually being quoted to us in Bitcoin. And so it's impossible to put a US dollar value on how much money it's going to cost you to make these withdrawals unless you come up with, some assumption of what the average yearly Bitcoin price is going to be. I guessed that maybe for 2022, the average yearly Bitcoin price was $25,000. This might be wrong. It might be right. You could do as much research as you wanted and put some other number here. If, for example, you came back and you put that the yearly average price, you thought that it was only going to be $16,000 for the next year, you could come back over to charts and you could see that now Kraken becomes a better option than Strike at a lower yearly spend because those withdrawal fees back over on Kraken. This Bitcoin withdrawal fee that just gets eaten up by the exchange is not as much as it used to be. So that's our first assumption here. And if you were withdrawing something like Ethereum, you would do the exact same thing. You could call this ETH price, and you could change this to maybe you think the average ETH price for next year will be $1,000. And then you could come back here and update your withdrawal fees to match the Ethereum withdrawal fees on these different platforms. I'm not going to go ahead and build all of that out right now just because there's like a million different cryptocurrencies on all of these different platforms, but I will leave links down in the description so that you can check out the withdrawal fee schedule and the trading fee schedule for yourself of these different exchanges. I'll do my best to keep this sheet up to date, but definitely check those links in the description if you are watching this video far into the future after it's been posted. So back to our assumption here. The second assumption is withdraw after every X days. This matters because obviously if you're incurring that withdrawal fee more often, you're going to be paying more in fees every year. So let's say that instead of withdrawing every 7 days, which I think is probably as frequently as you could possibly be withdrawing, let's say instead of every week, we withdrew once a month. If we come back here to charts, we can see that immediately Kraken has become the best option for the $1,000 tier of spend, and Binance has become like a very, very cheap option relative to everywhere else. And that's because if we go back to the exchange fee data, we can see that Binance US is offering free deposits, free trading on Bitcoin, but a slightly higher withdrawal fee than Gemini, Kraken, and Coinbase. And so in this case, what is the trade-off? The trade-off is we're getting very cheap yearly fees for buying Bitcoin, right? Binance, if you spend $1 million in this case, but you leave your coins on the exchange for 30 days at a time, you're only paying $2 a year. And if we actually go back to assumptions, this seems absurdly low because it is absurdly low. I forgot to change Ethereum price back to Bitcoin price. So let's put this back to 25,000 and come back to charts. And we can see that actually it would be costing us $60 a year based on our assumption of the yearly average Bitcoin price and our withdrawals every 30 days. Binance doesn't look as great of an option as it just did 2 seconds ago with those, very sketchy assumptions of a 1,000 yearly average Bitcoin price. But that's sort of the beauty of this whole thing. You can sort of play around with the spreadsheet in whatever way you want and basically get instant feedback on which exchange is going to be right for you. This third assumption is average Bitcoin on-chain fees for Coinbase. If you come back to exchange fee data, you'll see that the withdrawal fee for Coinbase is variable. And basically what that means is that Coinbase's withdrawal fee is whatever the Bitcoin blockchain is requesting for them to send you your funds at that moment in time. And so it's not going to be a static 0.0001 or 0.0002 like Gemini or Binance US are offering. It's going to be really high when lots of people are trying to make transactions, and it's going to be really low when nobody is trying to make a transaction. Unfortunately for us, that means that we have to make some sort of assumption of what we think that average Bitcoin on-chain fee is going to be. I think a low assumption for that would be, 25 cents that we have here. Could obviously be much, much higher in a case where everyone is trying to move their money all at once. I think maybe a safe assumption here would be $1 per withdrawal. So we can see that with the $1 assumption, we're getting quoted a $16 yearly fee. But if we come back to assumptions and we change this to $2 and then we come back to charts, we can see that this is now a $28 fee because there were 12 withdrawals per year. Again, if you come back to assumptions and you change your withdrawal every X days to 7, you're getting a lot more safety because you're never leaving your coins on the exchange, but now you're paying $108 in fees per year. Finally, this last assumption here is number of monthly paid Kraken deposits. If we go back to the exchange fee data, we can see that Kraken is actually charging you a $5 deposit fee when you deposit via Synapse. And this is actually the reason that I'm not using Kraken right now. They do have basically the best trading fee in the business outside of Binance US, but Kraken's deposits, I can't figure out how to do them. They've told me on Twitter that their free ACH deposits are coming soon and are being rolled out customer by customer. I have not gotten that rollout yet, and I would be curious to know if any of you have gotten that rollout yet. So if you have, please leave a comment down below. But as of now, I think everyone that's using Kraken is either wiring their money into Kraken and paying wire transfer fees, or they're using this, Synapse network, which I don't even know how to use, and they're being charged a $5 deposit fee. So if you were doing that and you were depositing, let's say once a month, we can see that with 0 deposits a month, if you were somehow getting free deposits, you could come over to charts and you could see that Kraken is a great option up here at $15 for $1,000 of spend, and at $40,000, it's only $77 of fees. But if we come back to assumptions and we just change this to a 1 here, we're making making one monthly deposit into our Kraken account using Synapse. If we come back to charts, all of a sudden Kraken becomes not the best option ever at any amount of money spent, and we can see that now Strike has become the best option in every single scenario here. So once you've gone ahead and set your assumptions from what you think is going to happen to the Bitcoin price, how often you want to withdraw from the exchange, I think this will be especially relevant to people given what has just happened to FTX. Maybe some people that really don't think this is going to happen again, maybe they withdraw twice a year, but I think the safest option is to withdraw as often as possible, obviously, but just be aware that that is going to affect, your yearly total fees. And then once you've set these metrics specific to Coinbase and Kraken, you can come back here to charts and you can see what your preferred option would be. We can see here that by far the cheapest way to accumulate Bitcoin is by using Strike until you start to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, which I think, not many people are going to be doing. When Binance starts to take over and become really the platform of choice, especially if you're not withdrawing all that often. However, let's say that you live in New York and Strike is not an option for you. You could go ahead and set these fees to be arbitrarily high to just knock Strike out of the equation. And then you could see that if you were spending up to $10,000 a year, really Swan is going to be your best option. And then at $10,000 of spend, you're paying slightly more to use Swan than you are to use Coinbase or Kraken. Kraken, especially here, even if you're depositing once a month, is looking pretty good at $89 of yearly fees given $10,000 of spend. If we do a little bit more conditional formatting just to make this a little bit more interesting, you can see that now the yellow is the second cheapest option and that the red is now the most expensive option for each tier of spend. So really which exchange you're going to be using here going forward in 2023 is going to be very specific to you. Personally, what I'm going to be doing is acquiring large amounts of Bitcoin over on Strike because, the fee structure I think is insane and too good to ignore. And then as far as dollar cost averaging, I would love to go with Kraken because, you can see what a cheap option Kraken is. But until they implement free bank transfers, I just think it's such a pain in the butt to have to go manually do your dollar cost averaging over there. So I'm going to be using Coinbase because Coinbase has lower yearly fees at every single fee tier here versus Gemini. Coinbase and Gemini are two exchanges that I've fully automated using API strategies here on the channel. These API strategies allow you to automatically withdraw your funds from the exchange on whatever schedule you want. I personally have been doing every 7 days just because it takes about 7 days for bank deposits to fully settle in these different cryptocurrency exchanges. And I've had a few people now reach out to me on Twitter telling me that the API strategy is what saved them from FTX's collapse. I personally think it's very hard to not use these exchanges. They're very, very convenient and they're, much less expensive than using something like Swan if you're spending lots of money every year. However, there is obviously a ton of risk, as we've seen with FTX, in using these different exchanges. And so I think if you are going to use an exchange, you definitely should look into setting up automatic withdrawals using the API. And so really my strategy will be automatic withdrawals, Coinbase dollar cost averaging, and then larger spot buys either directly from my paycheck or just whenever I get the money over on Strike. For anyone else that wants a fully automated strategy for how to dollar cost average Bitcoin, definitely check out the playlist that I'll have linked up above in the cards. And if you guys are watching this video when it comes out in early 2023, once they fully retire Coinbase Pro, I will be redoing all of the Coinbase API videos so that they are updated with whatever new thing Coinbase rolls out to replace Coinbase Pro. So if you're interested in that content, definitely go down below and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if I lost you at any point or if you do have any questions. I do still respond to all the comments. And then come back here every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern for a new video. I love you all. Goodbye.